All right, we are now joined via Zoom by whistleblowers John Clark to weigh in on Dudu Myeni's guilty plea to defying an order of the Chairperson of the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, Raymond Zondo, not to disclose the identity of a protected witness. Myeni has been sentenced to 5 years imprisonment or 120,000 rand fine by the Johannesburg Magistrate's Court. Let's talk to John Clark. Apologies, it's actually 2 years. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Clark. Thanks so much for joining us here on SABC News this afternoon.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're most welcome. Let's start by talking about the decision by Myeni to plead guilty, entering into this, a plea agreement with the state and sentence agreement with the state as she has. Can one read into that there was no feasible defense on her side, for exposing Mr. X's identity?
Well, I mean, she's admitted as much, and I mean, it's a pattern of behavior that the fact that she has already been declared a delinquent director has shown that her approach to her authority and power has shown a sort of a certain hubristic contempt. And it's progress that she is now, at least, I think, getting good legal advice and being told, listen, plead guilty, that we can get you off there. And lighten the burden. So the sentence does, and it's important to acknowledge, has a modest deterrent effect. I say modest because, some people would say it needed to be a lot harder because there's a lot more that she needs to account for. But it wasn't restorative or rehabilitative as far as I could see. Now, restorative justice means all stakeholders in a criminal act, the victims, the witnesses, the perpetrators, should come together to reconcile and work out an appropriate remedy that would be restorative, corrective, and rehabilitative. So I would rather to have seen her placed in the tender mercies of the Department of Correctional Services to work out what that would mean. I also would like to suggest she should have paid, the fine that she was levied should be paid to whistleblower support organizations. Now, there are two newly formed ones, is Whistleblower House and the South African Institute for Responsible and Accountable Governance. That would then send a more positive signal, and let's hope that happens. Also, some community service, which I wouldn't want to be prescriptive about what that would mean, but it could be worked out depending on her interests. And hopefully things would move a bit more ahead of that. And maybe other people would start owning up to their failures if they knew that there was some sort of redemptive way of going forward.
Yeah, I want to talk specifically about whistleblowers, and I see you're quite impassioned when you talk about whistleblowers. Let me play devil's advocate for a second here. One understands, the safety concerns when it comes to whistleblowers, where there might be an idea that the person might have that I might be killed, if I speak out. When it comes to protected witnesses, how is one to verify the sort of veracity of their claims under oath if they aren't willing to, even stand by it in a way of identifying themselves? I mean, I'm looking at, for instance, what's going on now with the public protector. There's this commission, there's, of course, this inquiry underway, and there was a so-called whistleblower who, it turned out, there were reasons why he was, in fact, alleged reasons why he was whistleblowing. There was something behind that. There were other facts that caused him to call himself a whistleblower, and that might not have actually been good for the inquiry in itself. So one always wonders, is there something that's causing you to be that, what you're calling yourself a whistleblower? Are all whistleblowers good whistleblowers?
Well, I mean, nobody has a complete purity of motive, and I'm very much, as a social worker, must take a non-judgmental attitude, work with where people are at, and recognize that, every saint has had a past, and every sinner has a future. And quite honestly, the people that are likely to bring the most useful information for securing convictions, particularly on financial crimes, are people that are in some way or another perhaps tainted. Now, Angela Grietti is a good example of somebody who I really believe has been very badly treated by the criminal justice system and sent out a very bad signal to other people who have information, who want to share it, but they just feel that, no, it's just not in our interest. Now, the determination of who is a valid and who's invalid, the issue is how useful is the information to secure a conviction? And can it be cross-examined? People people are not going to be willing to declare their identities if they know that there's going to be retaliation against them. So that's why it was very important for this sentence to have a stronger deterrent effect, to actually say to people, we've got to protect the integrity of the criminal justice system insofar as, it allows for truth to manifest itself. And what Dudu Myeni did, and I would love to interview her and talk with her, is she actually sent out a signal to other people who potentially were wanting to tell the truth that I'm going to disclose you. I'm going to reveal your identity. And who knows how things might have been different had she not done that. So I think people need to take that broader assessment about where we go in the future, because things are really in a very bad way in this country. And, I really do think that it's time for us to look for a restorative justice approach to dealing with these things, because the criminal justice system is not going to be able to go through all the prosecutions, and civil society needs to get involved, the churches, etc., etc. And I would be personally very happy to have any other, Dudu Myeni and any other potential villains of the state capture to approach me in confidence to say, how can we move on from this? How can we transcend it? How can we move into
you very confidently refer to them as villains. You talk about the criminal justice system. What happens? What exactly? How strong was? Let's call him again, Mr. X. How strong was his testimony, and would it in fact have or had the potential to lead to a conviction of Dudu Myeni? Not on this issue. I'm going to call it a side issue, the whistleblower issue. But let's talk about what he was testifying about. Was his testimony that powerful, that strong, that ultimately it would have led to a conviction?
I really don't have knowledge about what he said. I don't know who it is. It's more the matter of the principle that I think Judge Zondo was very angry about. Because he repeated, he says, you're not to disclose it. It's an obstruction of justice. And so that's really, I think, the principal point. It's the same as like perjury. I mean, a person could lie about small things and lie about big things. The point is, you don't lie and you don't disrespect the decorum and the process of the way the criminal justice system should work. Because if you do that, if you undermine it and unravel it, well, it leaves society basically having to take the law into its own hands. And that can lead to all sorts of, even worse outcomes. So that's why I think, it's important for us to be very, see this as a learning opportunity, to be more, to hopefully educate people about how important it is that the law and the rule of law is respected.
All right. Mr. Clark, thanks very much for giving us your time. That's John Clark, social worker and whistleblower advocate.